My wife was making a batch of maple walnut biscotti that we really like, and I just thought I'd film it to share with you. And it starts with our maple syrup that comes from the trees in our backyard. And there's very few, ingredients in the biscotti itself. Some butter and flour and a little baking powder and salt, a couple eggs, and some sugar. And basically it's pretty easy to whip up a batch, and there's some chopped walnuts in this one too. And it's a real easy thing to make, and you just need a cookie sheet to cook it on, and a little bit of parchment paper, and you just have to start the oven up and warm that up when you start this whole process. I'm going to put a link to the recipe. It's with all the copyright laws and stuff, I can't post it on here, but I can actually send you to a link to it. So down in the description I'll put that link. Basically you start with the mixing the dry ingredients up. Put the flour in. Now my wife doesn't have a sifter. If you have a sifter, it helps get some of the lumps out sometimes, so you can do that. And some of the baking powder, and a little bit of sea salt she uses in there. And then you just kind of mix all the dry stuff together there to get that all mixed up real good, and ready to go to the next step. And then you take some butter that she's had that out for a while, getting soft, so just dump that in the mixer bowl there. And then there's a little bit of sugar that goes in there next with that. And we found some of these big plastic containers at Costco that hold like a 10-pound bag of sugar or 10-pound bag of flour and stuff, and they're really handy to have in the kitchen to seal that kind of stuff up in if you do use a lot of it for baking, which we do. So basically the sugar and the butter is down there in the beater, and just getting the maple syrup ready. It's great to be able to just tap into the trees in the backyard to make maple syrup. And probably this year I won't do it because we still have a lot left from several years ago when I did it. But probably next spring I'll be doing a video about making the, just boiling down the sap and making the syrup. So it kind of mixes up the butter and the sugar, and stops the beater every once in a while just to push it down in there, and just kind of get that butter softened and mixed up a little bit. And I'm kind of amazed at how well these big stand mixers actually work for making stuff like this, and how easy they make it to whip up a batch of something. We've had this for quite a few years now, and really giving it a beating, and it just has never had a problem. So she, has got the butter now. It's starting to get pretty softened up in there, and the sugar's all mixed in. And you just have to stop it every once in a while and push it down. And then it's time to start adding the eggs. So basically one egg goes in first, and turn it on and just mix that up a little bit. Start to get that mixed in pretty good. And then just just stop it and add the second egg a little while later. And basically all the cooking that we do is really basically just simple recipes that we enjoy, and we kind of make them over and over again because we do enjoy them. And this one's a real good simple biscotti recipe, we feel, at least. It's so expensive if you go out in the store to buy, some of the biscotti, and we find that the stuff that you get in the store is, it's really dry sometimes, it seems like, where this, the maple syrup in this actually seems to keep this a little moister, and, not quite as dry and crunchy. So there goes the maple syrup in next. And she's going to just let that mix together for, a couple more seconds there to get everything mixed in there good. And then, a couple seconds later, it's all done. And it's time to just remove the that mixer thing there, and just kind of scrape all that off that you can get off, and get it back down there in the bowl so you can, just take and add the dry ingredients next. So that's all you really need the mixer for right there. It just gets you started, and then now it's time to start adding the dry stuff. And she does it in 3 batches. She dumps a third of it in first, and starts mixing it around, and I guess she calls it folding it together to get going. So every time you add a little bit more, it gets a little thicker and harder to work with. But this is about the hardest part of making the biscotti. She's got all 3 batches of the dry stuff put in there now, and it's just a matter of getting everything mixed really thorough. And in the end, it does make like a real stiff dough. Gets tougher and tougher to mix as you go on. So now it's time to add the chopped walnuts, and we just buy like 3-pound bags of walnuts in Costco, and she's got a little nut chopper that she does a batch at a time, and it works pretty good. And now it gets a little tougher to start mixing them in. And the dough itself is it's a rather dry dough because it's a biscotti mix, and gets down to the point where you really just have to start working it with your hands in the end. So this one batch actually makes 2 biscottis. So she'll start with half of it and lay out a piece of wax paper on her baking mat there, and just start to try to shape it into a kind of like a log of it. It should be you just want to get it so that it's about 3 inches wide, I think they say, and maybe about 3/4 of an inch thick or so. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just gotta be pretty much the same thickness throughout, so it cooks evenly. So she'll play with it with the wax paper there, and that keeps everything from sticking, and helps to shape it up. And there's the first one ready to go in the pan, and using that parchment paper in the pan really does help too. It keeps everything from sticking, and helps it cook evenly too. So here's the first one down, and one more to go now. Now, I basically like anything that has maple syrup and walnuts in it, so you can kind of guess why this is one of my favorites. And this is real time making these videos, so it doesn't take that long to make actually. So she's got 2 of them in the pan, and the oven, back in the beginning she turned the oven on to heat it up. So now it's time to place them in and set the timer and do the first baking of them, I mean. So there they are done for the first cook, and you take them out, and she's going to move them over to a cutting board to just let them cool. You can see they've got a little bit of a golden brown on them, and they've got some cracks starting to form in them and stuff, and that way you can tell that they're done. So now they just go on the cutting board and give them another 15 minutes or so just to cool down so that you can actually handle them. And then you have to take a serrated knife, a good sharp serrated knife, and start to slice them into about 5/8 thick slices or so. Now this is one of those old Jinsu knives that we got at a county fair, probably, I would say probably about 30-40 years ago, and it's one of those knives that you can cut anything with, and it's supposed to stay sharp. And well, I guess I could tell you that it has cut a lot of different things, and it's still just as sharp as the day that we got it. So I guess it's one of those little miracles that you find at a fair that actually does work. So, it cuts really nice with a serrated knife at this point. And then it's just a matter of putting it all back on the cookie sheet there, and you have to make sure that you spread the pieces apart a little bit so that they will have some airspace around them, so that they can just brown a little bit on both sides of them, along with the top on this next baking. So she just, spreads them all out on a sheet like that. And a couple months ago, I guess, we found these really nice heavy cookie sheets. They're all aluminum. You can see that at Costco. And she really loves, how they cook and how they've got all the crinkles in the bottom, so they don't actually pop and move around in the oven when when you heat them up like the steel pans do. And she'd been real happy with this, these couple of cookie sheets we got. So you get them on the sheet spread out there, and back in the oven for the second baking. And that basically just crisps them up a little bit on the sides. And it's time to make the glaze, and you start with some butter and put that in the microwave to melt it. And a little bit, I think it's like another quarter cup of maple syrup goes in there. And then it's just like a standard glaze. You put the sugar in next, and just kind of mix it all up. And like I said before, I'll post a link in the description down there to the exact recipe. It's at allrecipes.com if you search for a maple walnut biscotti recipe. And we really like this one. We like the flavor of it, and just kind of like the texture of how it comes out when it's all done. And it's definitely a keeper in our book. So there's the glaze all done, and it's time to take the biscotti out now. They're done cooking. That was the final bake on them. So you can see they're a little bit kind of like sealed up brown a little bit on the outside edges of them, and they still stay a little bit moist in the middle, is why I really like this recipe. And then it's time to just take them off and let them do start doing the final cooling here. So now at this point, we've got them all mixed up, so they just don't fit together anymore, but you knew what they looked like before. So she just puts them on the cutting board, and gives them just a couple minutes to cool down again, so that you can just kind of handle them and get them all lined up there. And then you just take that. Well, we don't do it. We don't have a fancy bag or anything to put that glaze on with, so we just take a spoon and just drizzle it on there. And it doesn't really matter how thick it is or what it looks like. It all tastes good in the end. So, basically that's it. It's doesn't take that long to make them, and they're really I really like them with like a cup of coffee or a glass of milk or something like that. I guess some people, if they're Italian, they actually dip them in a glass of wine too, but I just haven't gone that far yet. So I just thought that I'd just share just to show you just how easy they really are to make, and how quick they are to make, and there's no muss and no fuss, and they are a really good treat. And then at the same time, she decided to make some chocolate chip cookies for the grandchildren that are coming over tomorrow. So so here it is. It's I just thought I'm hoping that this might inspire somebody else out there that hasn't tried making biscotti yet to give it a try, and hopefully it just shows it doesn't really take a lot of ingredients to make it. It's fairly simple. It's not really a whole lot of work to make it either. Everything happens in real time. You don't have to wait for any dough to rise or anything like that, and it's just a fun treat, and being able to get that flavor of the fresh maple syrup in there just makes them really, really outrageous to me. And I have my lettuce started under the grow lights now, and my first seeds coming soon. So I'll be making a quick video about that in a while, and also a build started down in my shop that I should have a video about, probably in a week or two. So, I just thought I'd just share this, and thanks for watching. Please subscribe.